We have now identified many potential sources of variation, but we still have to discover the vital X's which lead us to our solution. It's really easy to get caught up in the details of the process, so it's time to step back and look at what we've done in this step. Well, here we are at the end of Step 6, and the end of the Analyze phase. Before I turn you back over to Siggy, let's recap what we've accomplished here in Step 6. We examined the purpose of hypothesis testing. We identified and explained the tools used in this step. We performed a 2-sample t-test and evaluated the results of the t-test used to compare groups of data. Finally, we used a cause and effect, or fishbone diagram, to brainstorm possible sources of variation. The statistical tools which we use allow us to analyze historical data in order to reduce the number of variables to investigate in the Improve phase. You'll get to see them at work in the next section of this course. You've done a great job with the Analyze phase, and it's been a pleasure being your instructor. However, my job is done, and I'm going to turn things back over to Siggy so he can take you to Improve. When you click on Next, you'll go to the phase summary and review. Bye now!
Welcome back. Master Black Belt On really enjoys analyzing data, doesn't she? We're going to take a quick look at what Analyze covered and then ask you a few questions about the phase. Following the collection of data in the Measure phase, we used the Data and the Minitab Process Capability Report to determine our baseline for the process. Having an accurate baseline is critical, since we will measure any improvement in the process from the baseline. So the ultimate success or failure of the project will begin with an accurate baseline.
Click Next to continue.
In Step 5, we determined our performance objectives, or where we wanted to wind up when the project was completed. We started applying the results of our benchmarking to provide our overall Sigma score. We determined what level of improvement, as measured by the long-term DPMO, would be required. The process entitlement gave us a reality check on whether or not our goals would be attainable.
Click Next to continue.
In Step 6, we looked for the vital X's, or what variables could be altered to make a significant change in our Y. We then examined our process to determine what the variables could be. We brainstormed a number of possible causes, and in the Improve phase, we will determine the vital X's, which we will use to change our process.
Click Next to continue.
Well, that concludes the Analyze phase, except for one thing, the phase review questions. Be sure to go back over anything you're not certain of before you begin. There are 3 categories into which you enter data for the Six Sigma product report. Those categories are in the left-hand column. There are 3 data items associated with the data entry process listed on the right. Drag the appropriate items from the right-hand column to their matching categories on the left. Only one item will go in each box. When you are finished, click on Done. That's great! You correctly matched inspections performed to opportunities, forms to units, and missing fields detected to defects. Click Next for question 2. Which of the following does the 2-sample t-test provide? Select the best answer and then click the Done button to submit. Very good! The 2-sample t-test is used to provide a comparison of 2 means. Click Next for your next question. In order to define a goal, we need to know where we're starting from. What is that starting point called? Select your answer from the choices listed and click on the Done button to continue. Great work! You correctly chose baseline as the term for our starting point. Make sure you also understand the other 3 items used on this question. They may all appear in your final exam. Click Next to continue. What kind of error is committed by rejecting the null hypothesis when it is in fact true? Select your response and click Done to continue. Excellent choice. You have correctly identified a Type 1 error. Click Next to go on to the next question. When we do our statistical analysis, which of the following values is used to determine whether or not to reject the null hypothesis? Select your answer and click on the Done button. That's right. The p-value is what we use to determine whether or not to reject the null hypothesis. Click Next for your next question. Hypothesis testing has many applications, but what do we apply it to? Choose your answer and then click on Done to submit your choice. Hypothesis testing can be applied to either two independent samples or to one sample taken from a large whole or a constant population. Click Next to continue. Well, you've finished the Analyze phase. Congratulations! You're well on your way to collecting your Green Belt certification. Take a look at your score and review any of the areas where you missed a question. After you're done, we'll meet back at my office and discuss what happened next in the commercial loan.
Great to see you back. This is an exciting section coming up. Until now, you've been concentrating on defining the problem. I'll bet you're itching to start solving it. If so, you're in luck. This is where we stop looking at problems and start looking at solutions. In this phase, we're going to determine exactly what factors we are going to change in order to improve our process. In order to do that, we're going to have to change our focus from the end result, or the why, to the factors that can impact the why. We call these factors vital X's to distinguish them from the X's with little or no effect on the why. So let's recap our project so far. In the define phase, we established the high-level CTQ for the project, put our team together, and identified the loan approval process as the process to focus on. All of that prepared us for the next phase, measure. In the measure phase, you selected the CTQ characteristics, defined the performance standard, and established and validated your measurement system, and then collected the data. At the end of this phase, you had collected data and structured it properly in the Minitab worksheet. That's where it needed to be for the next step, analyze. In the analyze phase, we started applying the statistical power of Minitab to the data collected in measure. We determined our process capability and used that information to set project objectives. We then brainstormed a list of possible individual factors that we might change in order to affect the outcome of our project. So we know where we are, we know where we want to go, and we know that others are doing better. We also have identified a list of potential culprits among our sub-process factors. We have 3 steps to lead us toward our goal. In Step 7, we will take the list of potential causes we brainstormed and analyze, Step 6, and determine which of them have the potential to be our vital X's. This allows us to narrow our focus on the X's that may significantly impact the CTQs. In Step 8, we will use a variety of tools to discover the variable relationships and then propose one or more solutions to our problem. Just knowing the importance of a factor does not provide enough information to allow us to recommend a solution. We need to run additional tests in order to optimize our proposals. And finally, in Step 9, we will establish operating tolerances for our revised process and pilot the solution. So your assignment in the Improve phase is to use all the information that has been acquired and calculated to identify the vital X's, propose a solution, establish the operating tolerances, and prove the solution through the pilot process. Frank Ignacio will be your instructor in this phase. So I'm going to turn things over to Frank and let him introduce himself and then take you on through the Improve steps. You're up, Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Ignacio. Finding out all you can about your process and its limitations is important, but I like to get to the point where we're fixing the actual problem. I have extensive experience in designing experiments and statistical tolerancing, which is where you determine how to improve the process. Click Next and we'll see what we can do.